Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Edward Jeredjian. I'm the director of the Baker Institute here at Rice University, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this special international workshop on science collaborations across borders. Today's event is part of a significant and growing collaboration between Rice University and institutions of higher education in Asia. The partnership represented here today helps to expand the international outreach of Rice University and to realize the Baker Institute's mission of bridging the gap between the theory and practice of public policy. I would like to thank the Richard Lounsbury Foundation for their support of this program. Scientific collaboration on both sides of the Pacific Rim will be vital to meet the many challenges that we face in the 21st century, such as understanding and responding to global climate change and finding better therapies or cures for disease. While most scientists are committed to forging closer ties, practical issues of public policy sometimes, as you well know, stand in the way. These impediments include balancing meaningful cooperation with security sensitivities, difficulty in obtaining visas to attend scientific conferences, and the decentralized research structure in the United States compared to the more centralized research systems in Asia and around the world. If cooperation between researchers in the United States and Asia is to increase, these obstacles need to be recognized and, where possible, lowered to permit productive and cooperative research. Over the past century, collaborations among scientific researchers working in the United States and Asia have in many cases been hindered by uneven and sometimes poor relations between governments, as well as inconsistencies in politics, standards, and practices. As the American and Asian economies and societies continue to integrate under globalization, policymakers and researchers alike need to examine ways to enhance cooperation in the context of competing cultural perceptions, business practices, economic strategies, and the customs of the various regions. Successful research and the advancement of science and technology in any region of the world depends on effective, free, and open communication and cooperation among experts with specialized knowledge. Cooperation between researchers working in the United States and their counterparts in Asia is particularly important for each side. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, approximately half of the world's research and development expenditures come from the United States and East Asia. Moreover, to take one example, scientific research remains a key component of China's plan to transition from an agrarian to an industrial society. Research and development represented 1.34% of Chinese gross domestic product in 2005, and Chinese policymakers have set an ambitious goal of increasing that percentage to 2.5% over the next few decades. In 2007, the ratio of research and development to gross domestic product in our country, in the United States, was 2.66%, according to the National Science Foundation. Of course, the worldwide economic and financial crisis presents problems in the short run, such as potential funding cutbacks, which could reduce some opportunities for international cooperation. Hopefully, this will not happen. Investments in science, engineering, and technology often lay the groundwork, as you in this audience well know, for future businesses, industries, and commercial applications that fuel economic growth and prosperity. It is crucial that policymakers, both in Asia and America, take the long view. We are privileged to have so many distinguished representatives from eminent institutions of higher education in Asia. And I know that a number of you have traveled thousands of miles to be here this morning, and we're very happy to receive you here. Many individuals from Rice University have dedicated both their time and talent to make this event possible and a success. The Baker Institute's Fellows in Science and Technology Policy, Drs. Neil Lane and Kirsten Matthews, worked tirelessly to organize today's program. Dr. Chris Bronk, the Baker Institute's Fellow in Technology Policy, and Dr. Steve Lewis, the Baker Institute's Fellow in Asian Studies, worked with Neil Lane and Kirsten to plan this workshop. I would also like to thank Drs. Wade Adams, Jack Agee, Krishna Palam, Shimao C., and Evan Seaman. They are all professors at Rice University who have collaborated closely with the Baker Institute on this event. This morning's program is part of a larger two-day discussion with you, the distinguished scientists from across Asia. I am sure the discussions today and tomorrow will be fruitful, and I trust that this will be the first of many events on enhancing international scientific cooperation. Now it is my privilege to introduce the president of Rice University, Mr. David Leebran. A native of Philadelphia, President Leebran is a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School. He served as Dean of Columbia University School of Law from 1996 to 2004. David Leebran became the 7th president of Rice University on July 1st, 2004. President Leebran is an advocate of building strong ties between leading U.S. universities and their counterparts in Asia, and we are privileged to have him moderate this morning's panel of distinguished university presidents. David, thank you very much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Leebran.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Ed. I want to add my thanks to all of you for joining us at Rice University and the Baker Institute. Many of you have traveled great distances to be here, and we very much appreciate your willingness to participate in this important conference. Especially want to thank my colleague Neil Lane for his efforts in making this conference possible and rushing back to be with us. Neil has just returned from Washington after being presented last night with the National Academy of Sciences' most prestigious award, the Public Welfare Medal. He has been a driving force in the United States and international scientific community, and we are honored by his continued involvement at Rice and his tireless efforts to find ways to eliminate obstacles that hinder important scientific research and discoveries. As Ed stated, this two-day discussion with distinguished scientists from across Asia is especially important and timely. Ed and I, and maybe one or two others, are, I think, the only non-scientist here, so I can claim no special expertise when it comes to the importance of fostering international research and collaboration. I did, however, study the history of science as an undergraduate and wrote my thesis on a 19th century German chemist. And indeed, that history, as much as any other, tells us a great deal about the importance of international collaboration. Chemistry was really the science of the 19th century, and immense progress in chemistry made possible not only a much deeper understanding of matter and chemical processes, but also enabled the emergence of the great chemical industries. That would not have been possible if international exchange of ideas had been hindered. The great chemists of the 19th century came from Britain, France, Germany, Sweden, and Russia in particular. The structural theory of organic chemistry, which I studied, in many ways reflected a synthesis of the French and German schools of thought. Today, of course, collaboration and exchange of ideas is made easier by extraordinary advances in transportation and the transmission of information across distances. Journeys that used to take days and weeks now take only hours. Huge amounts of information can be transmitted across any distance instantaneously. This ability to communicate is more important than in the 19th century, for then almost all of the great universities were in Europe. Today, they are scattered across the globe in places as far away from each other as Beijing and Houston. And yet, we see new barriers that have arisen and, in fact, are increasing, even as the need to continue such international collaborations becomes greater. Ponderous, long, and uncertain visa procedures have replaced relatively simple formalities. Concerns about security and the military use of scientific knowledge have been used by governments to justify not merely restrictions on the exports of products, but informational exchanges and working collaborations, even with one's own students. We can't say all such restrictions are not justified, but we can say with confidence that the progress toward knowledge that will benefit mankind will be hindered by such restrictions. Thus, it is incumbent upon all of us to identify such obstacles and seek solutions that will maximize the opportunities for scientific exchange and collaboration. This gathering, we hope, will be a critical step in fostering such a joint conversation, especially among scientists, and the importance of our international collaborations and what can be done to eliminate unnecessary barriers. I hope we will achieve progress here and beyond, for much more depends upon it than the work of individual scientists. Our and our universities' ability to contribute to finding the solutions to the world's pressing problems depends on what we can achieve in this forum and others that address these issues. This morning, I have the honor of introducing a panel of distinguished scholars and higher education administrators from three very important international cities that are highly active partners with many U.S. researchers and universities. We're very honored and pleased they could join us for this conference. We look forward to hearing from Presidents Chu and Lai and Senior Associate Provost R about their perspectives on international collaborations. I will introduce each speaker, who will present for about 15 minutes each. If it goes much beyond that, I'll be waving frantically from my seat there. After all have presented, I will ask all three to join me on the stage, and we'll have a moderated discussion as well as question and answer session with the audience. I'll ask that you hold your questions until that portion of the program. If you have questions during that time, there will be microphones available around the room. Since their bios are in your conference program, I'll only briefly highlight each speaker before he comes forward. Our first speaker is no stranger to those of us in Houston. Paul Chu is the president of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology and also currently serves as professor of physics, TLL Temple Chair of Science, and executive director of the Texas Center for Superconductivity at the University of Houston. He works on superconductivity, magnetism, and dielectrics. President Chu is a member of the National Academy of Sciences, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the Academia Sinica, the Academy of Sciences for the Developing World, and a foreign member of the Russian Academy of Engineering. Please join me in welcoming President Chu.
Good morning. I have to learn how to control this thing. Oh. It's a great honor to be here to share with you some of the thoughts that we have concerning international science collaborations. Next slide, please. How do I control it? Oh, it's here. Okay, great. The next one is there. Okay. Oh, yeah. I think basically we all know that science collaborations across borders are inevitable. It's not an option, but a necessity. This all has something to do with the recent development of science and technology in the world. Due to the paradigm shift, for example, many problems that we're facing now, it changes from local to global, and from simple problems to complex problems. And also for all countries, they try to go at the beginning, try to develop very rapidly, and now people think about sustainable economic development. So we have witnessed more changes in the last 100 years than in the whole previous human history. Just like President David LeBron just mentioned, that it helps us to improve, it has brought us wealth and foster health, and also brought us well-being. If you look into the driving force of all these changes, it's neither economic nor political, but technological. But of course, we know all this scientific, economic, technological are affected by political factors. And they are due to the technologies that flow directly from advances in science. For instance, IT has changed the whole world. It blurs the national boundaries, delivers creativity and intellectual liberation. It provides a level field, a play field for all under the sun. And this is amply evidenced when we look at the development of India and China particularly. It's all due to this IT effect and globalization effect. So we're talking about globalization. And the results of this globalization makes brain power the most valuable commodity. And every country is thinking about developing a knowledge-based society. And the knowledge which is characteristic by creativity and innovation. Well, I like to show this because I mentioned several things. I think the problems have become more complex. So I like to show this transparency. It was prepared by the late Rick Smalley from Rice. As you all know, he received the Nobel Prize because of his discovery of buckyballs. And he listed the top 10 problems for the next 50 years for humanity, for human beings. The first one is energy, the second, water, food, environment, poverty, terrorism and war, disease, education, democracy, population. You look at all these problems, they are no longer simple. They are very complex, involves different countries across the borders. So when we look into the future, we talk about the future development of the world economy. Basically, they're constrained by the following factors: energy, environment. We're talking about climate change and global warming and all those things. And in addition, it's also restricted by resources, not just materials, but also human resources. So for example, because of all these changes, so the Hong Kong government on higher education in 2002 issued a Southern report with the title of Making a Difference and to Move with Times. And basically, there are several recommendations. I just want to point out a few which are directly related to the international collaboration in science, education, and so on. So the first thing is that this report pointed out that Hong Kong would like to develop as an educational hub of the region. And then they also like to help the economic development of Hong Kong, the mainland, and the region. They also consider higher education as one force in the regional and international higher education arena. In other words, they would like to build a system that is integrated to the world system. As a result of all this, they emphasize internationalization that involves exchange of students and promote science and educational collaborations. So then I would like to I think this is not the famous Nano Institute of Rice, so things move a little bit slower. I just want to share with you what HKUST is one of the 8 publicly supported universities in Hong Kong doing in collaboration across borders. For example, the government basically asks us to have non-local undergraduate students around between 10 and 20%. We call it non-local. This is due to some special situation in Hong Kong. When we talk about non-local, that includes students from the mainland, because after all, Hong Kong is part of China, but with a different system. And that's what people talk about, one system, one country, two systems. And concerning postgraduate students, we have almost 50% across the board, and except business, medical, and law schools. Usually they're smaller. But our students, our university does not have has those disciplines. But we do have business school, and the business school is foreign students is very small, maybe 10, 15%. And then for undergraduate students, and any time we have about 550 from countries across the globe. For example, now it involves 71 universities in 15 countries and also the mainland. And collaborations we have with 168 institutes and universities in 18 countries and the mainland. I just want to point out a few examples, that has been very successful and helpful to our university and others. Well, the first thing is, for example, the world's smallest single-wall carbon nanotubes, and that was discovered by my colleagues, and they found superconductivity. And there was some question concerning the existence of superconductivity in this single-wall carbon nanotubes. It's only 4 angstrom across, actually even smaller than that. And recently, in collaboration with scientists in the University of Geneva, they really used specific measurements determining quite definitively the existence of superconductivity. And later on, and that was about a year ago, and now the person that we're collaborating with finally became a faculty of our physics department. And in China, there are national projects, for example, 973 in the mainland. That's a national project, and our university basically has 2 faculty members serving as the chief scientists of those projects, and which are the largest national science projects over there. Basically, one is in concrete materials, and the others in wireless, in IT areas. And then we all know that in China now, one of the biggest wireless companies, Huawei, and they collaborate with our universities. Just a few weeks ago, established the first research institute outside the mainland at our university. And then in the voice recognition areas, we collaborate with Carnegie Mellon University and Karlsruhe, and that involves not just research but also education part. And then with Boeing, we have my colleagues developed some techniques and working together with Boeing as an integrated service system. In other words, for maintenance, airplane maintenance, it's going so they can do it very efficiently by using minimum amount of time. And also working with Microsoft, they're developing the digital life across the border in Nansha, in southern China. And together with Kellogg, that's not scientific, we developed this EMBA programs, and for the last 5 years, according to the Financial Times and London, the ranking continues to be between 1 and 3. And actually, the important, interesting thing is the ranking is even higher than Kellogg itself because of the international factors involved in these collaborations. And then the other interesting thing is we also have people working on the population sensors and policies and so on. And we collaborate with the mainland, but in the same time, North Korea sent out their first delegation to our center for this study. In fact, we are supposed to be there in a few weeks, and if we don't get arrested. But as Professor Libram already mentioned, there are lots of challenges facing us, and because we always like to talk about competitiveness, collaborations, but there's another factor. We're all competing against each other. How do we handle that? This is a very sensitive issue. Of course, people talking about pre-commercial stage and after commercial stage. And the national security issue, as mentioned by President Lebrun. And we always think in the United States that because for the safety, for the national interest of this country, we like to impose all kinds of restrictions. But let me tell you one thing. After 9/11, the applicants for our graduate studies in our university increased by 60%. So in other words, if one country sets up all this barrier, it's a gain for the other countries. So we can see it, all this. We would like to remove these barriers, so therefore all of us will be benefit mutually. And the bureaucracy that's also involved with the governments and the cultural difference. Indeed, for example, we discuss things with the Arab countries, and there are some issues we have to resolve. For example, one of the governments in the Arab world came to our campus, and they would like to see that we build a mosque, on campus. And I think that becomes an issue, and some other cultural things involved. And the other thing is the language, for example. And I think right now, English becomes a universal language. It becomes easier and easier. And as just mentioned, in the United States, the responsibility of collaboration is diffused, decentralized. But in some other countries, centralized. How can we find to overcome this mismatch? And financial issue is also involved here. And the university systems also are different. For example, including exchange and sending people out for collaboration. I mentioned, like in the mainland, we collaborate with them on some of the national projects. And from the university structures, there are some barriers. And I actually walking on the border of some of the rules and regulations to overcome that. For example, in some of those projects, they required the participants to spend 60% of their time over there. And then in our university, as we all know, all universities would not allow a faculty member to spend 60% of time off campus. So how do you overcome those things, And so those are the things. And then the teaching responsibility is also the same, because again, that's restricted to the system of the university. But in that sense, Hong Kong, as I mentioned at the beginning, that Hong Kong was determined to overcome many of these barriers, but not completely. And in terms of language, culture, and many other things, I consider Hong Kong is in a unique position as a bridge to help foster international collaborations. And therefore, I welcome all of you. If you want to go to the other places, you can stop at Hong Kong and get the things done more easily. Thank you very much for your attention.
Our next speaker is Michael M.C. Lai, president of National Cheng University, the second largest public university in Taiwan. In his more than 30 years in academia, Lai has established himself as a leading virologist on the international stage. He's an expert on the studies of coronavirus, which causes severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, hepatitis delta virus, HDV, and hepatitis C virus. He was elected to Academia Sinica, the American Academy of Microbiology, and the Academy of Sciences for the Developing World. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to President Lai.
Thank you, President Lebrun. It's a great honor for me to be invited to speak in front of this distinguished panel of audience. I'm going to speak from my experience as a president of National Cheng University, I worked in the United States for 30 years before I went back to Taiwan 6 years ago, and I became the president of this university 2 years ago. The topic of today's workshop is science collaboration across borders. Just let me say a few words before there's a panel. Oh. Cont'd panel.
Is that much? 我想你看这里讲，但是
什么？
你就这样看，不要看 screen.
Okay. Let me say a few words about National Cheng University. And the university was established in 1931 as an engineering college. But through the years, it has become a comprehensive university with 9 colleges, including the liberal arts, engineering, and medical school. There's a student population of 21,000. Faculty of 1,800. As an international students, about 1,000, and international research fellows, about 200. We have alumni a population of 130,000, and overseas alumni population about 5,000, including the last speaker, Paul Chu, was the alumnus of our university. Also, the university is located next to Tainan Science Park, so there's a strong tradition of collaboration between our university and the industry. So this is the tradition of our university. At Cheng University, we believe strongly that internationalization is a key to the future of the university because the world is flat. The future graduates of our university must be able to compete internationally. The international competitiveness includes several things. First is the ability to communicate internationally. That's using international languages such as English, and also be familiar with the international topics. Also, the graduates must have the ability to appreciate other cultures so that we can collaborate with each other. He also has the ability. The graduates must have the ability to use the international standards to apply to science and technology. And of course, the most important thing is that the university graduate must be able to learn from the strength of other countries and to complement the weakness of ourselves. So in our university, there are a lot of collaborations between our universities and other countries and other universities in foreign countries. There are several forms of research collaborations. The first one is a university-sponsored student and faculty exchanges between universities. Of course, that includes the individual initiated projects. This is so-called bottom-up approaches. Or there are also the formal university agreements. And these agreements will cover certain topics. And then these topics, under these umbrella agreements, the faculties will engage the specific collaborations on specific projects. So this is a top-down approach. In this approach, there's, of course, there will be faculty and student exchanges. So the university will pay for scholarship and salary support to facilitate collaborations. Another form of collaboration is for a faculty member to join program projects in the U.S. agency-sponsored research, such as the NIH or NSF. There are certain NIH programs that allow the foreign scientists to serve as one of the principal investigators. And some of our faculty members do hold such grants. Also, it can serve, some of the faculty members serve as a principal investigator in the U.S. agency-sponsored research. For instance, some faculty members hold research grants from the U.S. Navy or U.S. Air Force and get the research grants this way. Also, the Taiwan government has an international collaboration program, such as the one sponsored by National Science Council in Taiwan. The National Science Council had this specific international collaboration agreement with certain countries, like the agreements between Taiwan and Germany, Taiwan and France, and cover certain specific areas of research. And once this agreement is signed, then they will call for proposals from scientists in Taiwan and scientists in other countries, like in Germany. And then the scientists from both countries then establish the collaborative research agreement, and then they applied for research grants in respective countries, in Taiwan and in the German government. And this way, they establish such international collaboration. Research collaboration also takes the forms of holding international conferences. Of course, don't forget that the sabbatical leaves is a very useful and productive way of establishing research collaboration. So many faculty members in our university have spent sabbatical leaves in the universities in the United States. There are many challenges, impediments for the international research collaborations. The most important thing, most difficult thing is to identify interested and willing researchers to work together. So there are ways to overcome this. We can hold conferences, hold mutual visits to find common research topics, so to bring the interested faculties together to establish collaborations. Very often, universities sign agreements between each other to establish mutual collaboration. But it's easy to sign an MOU, but it's very difficult to establish real collaborations. So the key for the successful collaboration is to identify interested and willing researchers to work together. I think this is really the key for the successful collaborations. We must identify the strengths and weaknesses of each other so that they are willing to work together to complement each other. The second most difficult thing is to secure the funding, research funding for research collaborations. So we must identify the funding sources from the government or from industries, and that's often difficult to do. Once the funding is secured, the funding, securing funding does not necessarily mean successful collaborations, because there's a restriction the research fund uses. For example, the international collaboration programs I just mentioned that established between the Taiwan government and the certain countries, these research funds often restrict uses. For example, the funding provided the government, Taiwan government, cannot be used to support research in a different country. So this funding only is used to support the research within our own country. And so although the funds is available, but it's difficult to work across the borders. So this must be, this kind of restrictions must be lifted to facilitate better collaborations. The housing and living arrangement, this seems to be very mundane, but this is a practical issue that very often hinder actual collaborations. Particularly, for instance, researchers want to come to the United States to work for a couple months. And then it's very difficult to find a temporary housing for these researchers. And difficult to find living arrangements. It's easy to find housing for a year, but it's very difficult to find housing for a couple months. And this practical issue very often discourage investigators from going to other countries for collaboration, for short-term collaborations. Visa and travel restrictions, work permit, immigration issues, scientists from mainland China are very difficult to come to Taiwan because of many issues regarding visa, work permits, and immigration issues. And last but not least is the motivation of students, of scientists to internationalize. It's kind of odd for me to say this because in my generation, 30, 40 years ago, most of the students, scientists were very willing, were eager to come abroad, to come to United States or other countries to study, to work. But as a society became more prosperous, then fewer and fewer young people wanted to come abroad and to study, to work, to collaborate. So there must be incentives for students, for researchers, for faculty members to come abroad. So these are the practical issues that must be overcome. So, as I said, there are many programs established in Taiwan or elsewhere for collaboration. But I just want to, besides of these typical programs, I want to mention a few innovative approaches that are going on in our university and in Taiwan and elsewhere. One is a sabbatical leave involving faculty and students. As I said, sabbatical leave is a very important tool to encourage collaboration because once a researcher works in collaborating laboratories for a year or two, then there's a strong collaboration will be established. And recently, one of our faculty members spent a year in University of Washington in Lee Hood's laboratory to spend sabbatical. And this sabbatical is unique in the sense that this professor not only came by himself, he also brought a group of students with him and to spend a year in University of Washington. So in University of Washington actually established an NCKU laboratory within the university. So the whole team worked in University of Washington, and they worked a whole year together with the investigators in the UW. And they established very good collaboration within a year. They published wonderful papers together. And now the professor has returned to Taiwan, but the students stayed in the laboratory to continue collaboration. So I think this is a wonderful example of the very fruitful sabbatical that leads to successful collaboration. As I mentioned to you in the beginning, the housing issues and living arrangement issue is a great impediment to successful collaboration. To overcome this, Academia Sinica and universities, several universities in Taiwan, including our university, NCKU, established an agreement with University of California at San Diego that UC San Diego will provide a piece of land to allow Academia Sinica and Taiwan universities to build a housing unit on the campus, and that will allow the Taiwan scientists to come to occupy and to live in the housing units, and they also allow the researchers from UC San Diego to live in the housing units, and then that will establish successful collaboration. And then there's a joint appointments and multi-partner collaboration, like you might have heard of Britton Chance, who is a brilliant biomedical scientist from the United States, who spent several years in Singapore. He established collaboration. He has appointment in our university to establish collaboration among between him and NCKU and Singapore. And so this is a very successful collaboration, which is result in wonderful research results. And our university also had a strong collaboration, as I said, work closely with industry. Now, this recent example is a Texas high-speed rail system established research collaboration with NCKU to do research on a high-speed rail system. So I think this is a very good example in industry academia collaborations. So these are a few of the successful collaboration and established between the universities and industry and industry. I hope that this will be serve as a models for future collaboration. Okay, thank you very much.
I have to say, our speakers so far are doing a wonderful job of adhering to the time guidelines. Thank you very much. Our final speaker on this panel is Meng Hua Er, Associate Provost and Professor in the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering of the Division of Information Engineering at Nanyang Technological University. As acting provost, he provides leadership on academic programs and faculty. In 2005, R was named the first Singaporean honorary fellow by the London-based Institution of Electrical Engineers, now the Institution of Engineering and Technology, in recognition of his outstanding contribution to engineering research, education, and public service. Please join me in welcoming Associate Provost R.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin by thanking President Liburn and the Baker Institute for the very kind invitation and kind hospitality. President Su would like to send his apologies for not being able to attend this workshop, and he has actually requested me to make a brief presentation on his behalf. And it is indeed a great honor and privilege to be here to speak to a distinguished guest this morning. So the presentation will cover the following. First, I would like to give an overview of this international collaboration. And it will be also very useful to talk a little bit on the Singapore's research landscape. And I will also cover the NTU collaboration's approaches and mention about some of the challenges and policy barriers as well as the preferred path. Today, collaboration of research and innovation is making national level much more contingent and interdependent. There's a growing trend towards cross-border collaboration, especially for research. Usually, research collaboration occurs mainly between US and European universities and institutions, or between Asian universities and the US and European counterparts. However, Asian universities are also gaining prominence as their economic growth. Increasing affluence growing attention on education and research in Asian countries actually contribute to this significant progress as well. Today, 1/5 of the world's scientific papers are co-authored internationally, a result of increasingly easy communication and cross-border travel. However, a new chapter of international collaboration is emerging as well, as scientific research has become an integral part of economic and innovation policy. And international collaboration has become a key element in globalization strategy. Excellence in science is a prerequisite for future economic success, and international collaboration is seen as a key mechanism for international scientific competitiveness. Singapore, for example, has been at work to become a major Asian education and research center via international collaborations by establishing an approach to attract the best and brightest in the world to their institutions, and at the same time investing in world-class research centers of excellence. For example, creating a high-profile international partnerships, inviting world-class foreign universities to open campuses in Singapore, as well as establishing a biomedical science park, Biopolis. If you look at the 14 grand challenges to enhance life for the 21st century, as identified by the National Academy of Engineering in US, many of these challenges are complex in nature, and no single country can offer the full spectrum of top knowledge and knowledge production facilities to solve these challenges. Therefore, if you look at the opportunities and challenges in cross-border S&T collaborations, these are some of the points we'd like to highlight. Number one is that Asian region possesses a wealth of biological resources and environments which actually provide the seeds for wide spectrum of basic research. Second point is that at the level of research institutions, notably universities, they can best develop excellence, critical mass, and visibility through transnational strategies of specialization and alliances based on complementarities and win-win situation. At the same time, the escalating costs of conducting fundamental research have also encouraged researchers to look for transnational arrangement of sharing equipments, resources, and databases. At the public research institution level, some of the challenges are lack of strategic, managerial, and financial autonomy. All this could actually hamper the cross-border collaboration. NTU, for example, used to be a statutory board established within the Ministry of Education. In 2006, the MOE has corporatized the universities. Now we are autonomous institution operating in Singapore. And I think that corporatization has actually given us a lot of leeway in terms of forging ahead with international partners in various types of R&D activities. And I think another issue which can actually hamper the collaboration effort is actually IP management. At the level of public research organization, IP management is an increasing important tool to allow for effective knowledge sharing and to also ensure maximum impact and exploitation of results of research. And some of the policy issues, whether at the institutional level or legal or practical barriers, could also make the mobility of researchers difficult in practice, as also mentioned by the previous two speakers. Let me just move on quickly to talk a little bit on the research landscape in Singapore. Singapore is committed to invest R&D as a driver for economic growth and as a foundation for our long-term competitiveness. Despite global economic recess, Singapore continues its push to become a research powerhouse. At the highest level, the Research, Innovation and Enterprise Council, RIEC, is actually currently chaired by the Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, is responsible for mapping Singapore's research direction. And RIEC actually reviews Singapore Research Report Card by looking at the progress made in strategic areas and marked as pillars of the industry. And currently, the NRF, the National Research Foundation, serves as a secretariat to RIEC. The NRF actually adopts a two-pronged strategy, a top-down and bottom-up approach in terms of promoting science and technology R&D in Singapore. In the top-down approach, strategic areas of research areas identified in which to build out core R&D capabilities. These are areas that Singapore has a unique opportunities and competitive edge to gain a leadership position. So currently, the three strategic areas identified are environmental and water technology, interactive and digital media, and biomedical sciences phase 2. To complement directed top-down approach for strategic research programs, NRF also has implemented a number of initiatives, for example, the Competitive Research Funding Scheme, the NRF Fellowship Scheme, as well as establishing a Create Campus. Create Campus stands for Campus for Research Excellence and Technological Enterprise. The whole idea of the Create Campus is really to invite world-class universities to set up research lab in Singapore in this campus. And currently, MIT is one of the important players in this Create Campus. At the same time, NRF is also working closely with the Ministry of Education to establish research centers of excellence. And under the first part of the development, so far 4 research centers of excellence have been established. Of course, besides our NRF driving the research activities in Singapore, the other agency, the funding agencies in Singapore include the Ministry of Education, A*STAR, Agency for Science, Technology and Research. Dr. Lim is also here. He can also share with you some of the activities there. And basically, A*STAR also fund university through the thematic kind of programs. And we also have the Ministry of Defense and Defense Science and Technology Agency, and DSO National Labs actually playing the big part in contributing to the research grant. At the same time, the Ministry of Health has this National Medical Research Council, which also funds some of these biomedical kind of areas. And of course, as in many other countries, you find that there are certain basic policies among this funding agency. One of the key components is that research funds awarded are based in a country that awards the project. For example, an overseas collaborator of a research project would not be allowed to have his share of the project fund transfer to his lab for work done on the research project. Of course, there are other type of restrictions as well, especially in the life science research. There's a policy on the transfer of live tissue, cultures, or certain highly infectious pathogens. This issue is also pertinent to multinational research projects on infectious diseases. It is also include the biohazardous agents. And research on human or animal subjects, they need to be consistent application as well as updating of policies that are in step with the advancement made in life sciences and genomics research. In terms of the approaches, NTU is committed to this internationalization of R&D activities as well, both research as well as the education level. And recently, NTU has been the initiator to establish this global alliance of technological universities. And this alliance actually includes 7 universities across 3 continents, 2 in the United States, and 2 in Europe, and 1 in India, and 1 in China. The alliance aims to address global societal issues to which science and technology could be their solution. And this alliance was actually formally launched on 7 April this year, 2009. In the area of environmental sciences R&D, NTU has been also forging a lot of partnerships with, for example, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, the University of New South Wales, as well as the Graduate University of Chinese Academy of Sciences in China. And the collaboration hopes to leverage the strengths of each institution to establish cutting-edge environmental science education and research through information sharing, joint research project, and the exchange of staff and postgraduate students. And NTU has adopted an open door policy by encouraging collaborations at all levels, including institutional and individual level. And being a multicultural university, we reach out to key regions of the world, the United States, Europe, China, India, and beyond. And we emphasize interdisciplinary approach, new structures and policies introduced to foster inter- and multidisciplinary research activities, and creating critical mass from pockets of expertise within the schools. And one of the research centers of excellence, EOS, Earth Observatory of Singapore, was formally opened on the 19th of February 2009 this year. And it is the region's flagship institute for Earth Sciences Research and Innovation. And this center received 150 million Singapore dollars by the NRF and MOE, one of the schemes which I mentioned earlier on. And this center is dedicated to understanding basic processes that produce natural hazards such as earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and climate change. There are other new initiatives, for example, like the Nanyang Environmental and Water Research Institute, NURI, as well as the Institute of Media Innovation, established in NTU to really in line with the national efforts in terms of pushing these very strategic areas in Singapore. And we have a strong connection with China as well. Just to mention that between the Singapore government and the Chinese government, there's agreement to establish this Tianjin Eco-City, one of the most significant collaboration between Singapore and the China government. And China will draw on Singapore's successful practices in urban development, environmental protection, and water resource management, and work towards building a new city that is environmental friendly, making a new pace setter of bilateral cooperation. And under this framework, Singapore universities, NUS, NTU, and also Tianjin universities are also in discussion to set out certain kind of collaboration under this bigger umbrella. And even though NTU is actually a leading science and technology university in Singapore, we have also developed a multitude of programs giving us a significant edge in building bridges with China, for example. One of the things worth mentioning is that we have these special programs through our Master of Science in Managerial Economic program and Master of Public Administration program, as well as the Nanyang EMBA program. Actually, these programs actually build strong ties with China's emerging elite. These are the vice mayor kind of level when they come to Singapore to undertake this master level program, and currently we have a strong network in China. And we're also forging deep collaboration with China's top universities, for example, like Beijing University, Shanghai Jiao Tong, Tsinghua, and Fudan universities in various kind of undergraduate global immersion program activities. Let me move on quickly because time is also catching up. Is that one of the things I'd like to mention is these IP issues. In fact, disagreement over intellectual property issues is a major barrier to research collaboration all over the world. And the real issue is not IP ownership, but the exploitation rights for any IP generated and the commercial benefits derived from it. So S&T collaborations are best based on alignment of strategic objective of both parties, such that both sides see value in creating new knowledge, which could translate into benefits for economy and society. And this would mean parity in terms of management of exploitation of IP development. And typically in NTU, our preferred path is to first create a favorable external environment, then create opportunities for interaction, especially among professors, and encourage the teaming out of professors across institutions and place limited seed money to start it off with, and then tap on our own resources to match each other's efforts. And I think the key to success is that the cross-border S&T collaborations should focus on global challenges and problems. This would mean that the problem to be addressed is a global or regional one. And the solutions developed from the collaboration will benefit the region or the world. Proper research program management and governance are of paramount importance. This is to ensure that the research direction and progress will be able to meet its intended objective. And there's also a need to have a constant dialogue to reach a common understanding of what can be done in transnational projects. With this, I'd like to conclude my presentation here. I'd like to thank all of you for your kind attention. Thank you very much.